Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to revisit one of my all-time favourite albums. There's no particular anniversary to celebrate or anything, but I haven't reviewed this album for several years, and it's a double album from 1979, and it's from Fleetwood Mac, and it's Tusk. This is the cover. This is my original UK copy, picked up in the very early 80s, I seem to remember. And I've got several copies to show you from my collection. Just before I get started, I don't want to say that I picked up this Christine McVie album in the meantime, released on vinyl for the first time. Very nice to have. So that was the other day. And as I say, a few Tusk albums to show you. So before we get started, a bit of background. Came out 12th of October 79 in the US, 19th of October 79 in the UK. It lasts for 73 minutes and 45 seconds, so a good length double album. It only sold 4 million copies, which sounds pretty good, but compared to the previous album, Rumours, which sold 10 million, the Warner Brothers record company judged it a failure. I think hindsight has viewed it more kindly, and I think a lot of people rate this album. Even at the time, the reviews were mostly positive. Lindsey Buckingham said he would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when this album was first played in the Warner Brothers boardroom. Anyway, the cover originally was going to be a picture of, or a painting or something, of Stevie Nicks twirling around doing one of her mystical dances, and so she was particularly put out when they decided to use, I think it was Ken Kylett's dog, that one of the producers, or the engineer, Ken Kylett, one of the co-produced the album with Fleetwood Mac, and this is a picture of him biting the leg of, I think it was one of the photographers. Anyway, this featured on the album cover, and Stevie Nicks was so put out she put a curse on Ken Kylett's dog, apparently. Anyway, I think this is a cool cover. I mean, we'd already had Stevie Nicks on the Rumours cover, so we didn't really need to have her on the cover again. Or why should it just be her? Why couldn't it be the rest of the band? But the inner sleeves have some delightful pictures of the band, and including this one. And the thumbnail to this video actually is an autograph I got from Christine McVie in a Mayfair hotel in London in 1988, for their Tango in the Night tour. I'm not sure how I found out which hotel they were in, but I went there, and I remember it was in the middle of Wimbledon fortnight because I had a ticket for centre court for the tennis, and before I went down to Wimbledon I went to this hotel and bumped into Mick Fleetwood, got his autograph, then saw Christine McVie coming out with her then husband, and approached her, got both of them to sign my Tusk songbook, and that was brilliant. I'm so glad I met Christine McVie. This is a cool band portrait. Apparently the photographer said they wouldn't agree to pose together, so they all posed separately, and he put it together rather cleverly here and said he would never have got as good a shot had they all been posing together. And this is a good band portrait. Lindsay's shaving off all his beard and his long hair, and this is his image for at least for the Tusk period, and he grew it back a bit for Mirage. So I want to show you a couple of coloured vinyl. I know on a recent video I said I'm not going to buy coloured vinyl. Well, I acquired this last year, and it wasn't too expensive, and it's the HMV. I'm not sure if it's exclusive, but it's on blue vinyl, and considering this is one of my top 10 albums of all time, if not in my top 5, the chance to have it on blue vinyl was just too good to resist, and I think you'll agree it looks absolutely stunning. And just talking of which, I've actually ordered a new turntable. It's arriving in about half an hour, so I'll be able to, because my old one had really packed up and was playing way too fast. So I'm looking forward to that. And then, as if blue vinyl wasn't enough, I picked up the other coloured vinyl variation, which is on lovely green vinyl, and I'll just show you that because it is beautiful as well. Look at that. I'm not sure if it's translucent or if you hold it up to the light. It's pretty cool anyway. So that's 2 coloured vinyl variations of Tusk. And then we've got my Japanese copy of Tusk, which is very interesting because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, it's got the lyrics, which didn't come in the original album. And sometimes you get the Japanese copies with rather badly translated lyrics, but in this case, I think the lyrics are okay. And then, as if you needed it, we got the lyrics or the song details in Japanese. And on the back cover of the Obi here, you've got all the previous Fleetwood Mac albums. I always like that about Obi strips. So I picked this up here in Budapest at a record fair about 5 years ago. A very unique Fleetwood Mac Tusk postcard which doubles as a mirror. So that is unique to this Japanese copy, I'm pretty sure. And then this came out a few years ago. It's the alternate Tusk, which has got exactly the same track listing, but just an alternate mix or alternate recording of each song. 20 songs. And it came out on this rather nice, same label as the original, but with a red circle there. And a very interesting alternate cover. Maybe this would have made a better cover. What do you think? And I think it's pretty cool. So that's that, the alternate Tusk. I'm going to put these all back in their sleeves at my leisure later. And then this also looks like another version of the album. It's actually live in concert, but it's got the same layout as the album cover. And this is a triple album of recordings from the Tusk tour, 79, 80, all of them. And then some nice pictures on the, I won't open it up all the full way, but it's got some nice pictures as well inside. So, as I say, judged a bit of a failure, but then 4 million is pretty damn good. It got to number 1 in the UK, number 4 in the US charts, number 2 in Australia, number 1 in New Zealand, number 3 in the Dutch charts, number 3 in the German charts, and number 3 in the French charts. And we've got 20 tracks. And I'll just get the cover so I can refer to it. Not that I need the cover, because I know the track listing pretty much backwards. But we've got 9 tracks from Lindsey Buckingham, 6 from Christine McVie, and 5 from Stevie Nicks, but a couple of the Stevie tracks are quite long. So I think in terms of airtime, excuse me, I think it's roughly equal, because some of the Lindsey tracks are quite short. And a lot of the Lindsey tracks are quite experimental, it has to be said, and he was recording quite a bit of them at home and got Mick to overdub some drums when they came into the studio. And he's using all kinds of weird instrumentation, like a Kleenex box apparently, for percussion on one of the tracks. And a lot of the reviews pointed out the experimentation of Lindsey on this album as being a highlight. It certainly is a highlight for me, it's not the only highlight. But I think he deliberately went the other way, because I think the record company, unsurprisingly you could say, were expecting or hoping for a Rumours Mark II, you know, just use the same formula and sell another 10 million copies. Well, Lindsey actually had a brainwave one day, actually let's not do that, let's do the opposite. And whilst this isn't quite the opposite, because it's got some very commercial sounding tracks on it, and some tracks which could have easily fitted onto Rumours, but it is expanded into a double album, and it's a lot more varied, and it's bolder in its experimentation, and I love it for that reason. And one inevitably is drawn to the comparison of the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper being followed up with the Double White album, and a lot of people saying, well, you know, it's a bit overblown, should have been a single, and all that, and Sgt. Pepper was such a masterpiece. Well, I actually think the White Album was a very brave follow-up to Pepper, and I think Tusk is a very brave follow-up to Rumours. So, but I've got a few remarks on that a bit later on in the video. What else am I going to say? Yeah, my son Tommy is clear that he doesn't like Lindsey Buckingham much at all, doesn't like any of his tracks hardly, and his favourite is Christine McVie, which is interesting. And I think my son Richie is also probably prefers the Chrissy McVie tracks to any of the others. I myself would rate them all equally as songwriters on this album in particular. I think Chrissy McVie in particular does reach she scales absolute heights which she's never scaled before or since, in my opinion. And my two favourite tracks from her on the album are Over and Over, the opener, and Think About Me, both of them on side one. And it's interesting that side one does sound more kind of commercial than the other sides, and it's got the big single Sarah from Stevie Nicks, and it's got Think About Me, which was a single, didn't do terribly well, but it's a bit similar to the White Album in that respect, in terms of the White Album having Back in USSR and Obla Di Obla Da on side one, and side one seems to be packed full of great tracks. And on this album, actually, there's not a weak side to this double album at all, but side one is particularly strong. So what else have I got to say? Yeah, to say it's in my top 10 albums of all time. I think it might even be in my top 5, but always been a big fan of double albums. This one, the White Album from the Beatles, Exile on Main Street from the Stones, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road from Elton, Pink Floyd The Wall, Physical Graffiti from Led Zeppelin, just to name a few off the top of my head. And Tusk is Mick's second favourite Fleetwood Mac album after Then Play On, although I've actually heard him say in a couple of interviews that it's his favourite, but in the source I was looking at the other day, it's his second favourite. Rolling Stone review, Stephen Holden, it's a bit pretentious, this language he's using, but I'll read you a bit of the review because it's quite interesting. In its fits and starts and restless changes of pace, Tusk inevitably records the Beatles' White Album. The quirky rock jigsaw that showed the Fab Four at their artiest and most indecisive. And then later on, semi-programmatic and not non-literary, it ushers out the 70s with a long, melancholy sigh. I don't know what it... And then finishes the review with, surely they must be... I can't read my stupid writing. Surely they must be aware of the evanescence of the golden moment that this album has captured so majestically. Now, I had to look up what evanescence means, actually, because I wasn't familiar with that word. It means something which vanishes quickly. So they basically captured the moment, but then it vanishes. And then this weird sentence to earlier in the review, Tusk finds Fleetwood Mac slightly tipsy from jet lag and fine wine, teetering about in the late afternoon sun and making exquisite small talk. I think that's a compliment. It doesn't sound quite like it, does it? Now, Robert Christgau of the Village Voice, who's always a controversial reviewer, I seem to remember, he lauded Buckingham's production and experimentation whilst dismissing Chrissy McVie and Stevie Nicks' contribution as well. He was wrong, in my opinion. And then we've got another reviewer at the time, unfortunately, saying would have been an incredible follow-up to Rumours if it was condensed into a single album. Does that sound familiar? Anyway, Chrissy McVie says, we didn't really like Tusk, we just kind of went, okay, because it was so different from Rumours, deliberately so. In hindsight, I do like that record, but at the time, me and Stevie would be like, what the hell is he doing in the toilet, playing an empty Kleenex box for a drum? I also read that the track Storms from Stevie is about the tempestuous relationship or affair that she had with Mick Fleetwood, and Beautiful Child is about the affair she had with Derek Taylor. So plenty of shenanigans going on within the band in terms of romantic link-ups and breakups. So probably that explains why the album is so emotional on so many levels. But I haven't actually talked about the tracks, have I? Well, it opens absolutely majestically, and very conscious choice of opener, I think, because the previous two albums had opened with a really storming Lindsey Buckingham rocker, like Monday Morning opens Fleetwood Mac album and Secondhand News opens Rumours. But Over and Over, it's a kind of laid-back song, but it's absolutely beautiful. It's a melody to die for. Lindsay's guitar and production is absolutely sublime. Mick Fleetwood is doing very tasty drums and percussion. I just love it. Absolutely brilliant. Probably my favourite track on the album. And The Ledge is Lindsay Going a Bit Crazy, and it's a very interesting contrast to the first track. And then you've got Think About Me, which is kind of probably the most similar track to Rumours on this album from Christine, and should have been a bigger hit. Save Me a Place, delightful Lindsay track, laid back and nice lyrics with some good harmony singing. Absolutely love that track. Sarah, Stevie Nicks is actually playing the piano on this song, and she was kind of a rudimentary piano player, not sort of technically too proficient, and they laid it down this track, and then they found out that the piano was ever so slightly out of time with the rest of the track. So Mick Fleetwood spent a long time overdubbing drums and percussion to make up for that. So it actually sounds, when you listen to the record, as if it's perfectly in time, because Mick and John, the rhythm section, have made sure that that's the case. By the way, this album cost $1 million to make, and at the time, which is about, I think it's $3.5 million in today's money, at the time was the most expensive album ever made. But I think the effort was worthwhile because the production is absolutely brilliant. So you turn over to side two, you've got What Makes You Think You're the One. I think Lindsay had fun doing a demo of this at home and then brought it in to the studio and got Mick to overdub some very loud drums, and it works really well. Storms is a nice ballad from Stevie. That's All for Everyone, sublime chord changes and harmonies from Lindsay. This is kind of inspired a little bit by Brian Wilson, I think, and it's just a beautiful song. Absolutely beautiful. Forgotten track, really, hidden gem. Not that funny is Lindsay Going a Bit Crazy again, but it works well. In the context of this album, the variation and the pace changes, as one reviewer called it, is very, very effective. And then Sisters of the Moon is one of Stevie Nicks's magnum opuses, and it's absolutely brilliant, although I'm not really sure, and I don't think she was really sure what it's about, but it's cranked this one up loud, and they did this on the Mirage Tour live in '82. And then side three opens with another track from Stevie, which allegedly was written about Mick Fleetwood, Angel, and it works really well. It was released as a single, didn't do anything. I don't think it probably was single material. That's enough for me as a short track from Lindsay, again probably recorded at home with maybe a bit of overdubbing in the studio. Brown Eyes, it's just a sublime little ditty from Christine, not much of a song, but it's just transformed into one reviewer said, transformed this not very big song into a sort of masterpiece almost. I mean, in terms of the arrangement, Peter Green is on hand to do guitar, the original Fleetwood Mac guitarist, and lovely harmonies. I just love this track to bits. Never Make Me Cry, another heartfelt ballad from Christine. There's an interesting demo on, if you buy the CD deluxe version, you can watch a demo, you can listen to a demo version of this track with piano. But the finished track is just guitar and vocal. And no, I'm not wrong, an absolute storming rocker from Lindsay. Again, played this one loud. I think it's brilliant. And then side four, again, strange choice to open a side, but very effective. Honey High, sort of a laid-back love song from Christine with gorgeous harmonies from the rest of the band. And Beautiful Child is an absolute masterpiece from Stevie Nicks with the lovely high piano at the beginning, all the way through, really. And a lovely melody and heartfelt lyrics, as I say, about the affair she had with Derek Taylor. And they had to end it because they were both involved in, he was married, of course, to Joan, so they ended it. And she was pretty upset, I think, and she wrote this song, and Walk a Thin Line. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous song from Lindsay again. Mick Fleetwood did a version of this on his album The Visitor in 1981, and George Harrison played a lovely slide guitar solo for that, so that was great. Walk a Thin Line, classic. Tusk, the title track, got all the way to number 6, certainly top 10 in the UK. I'm not sure about the US, but it's got a marching band behind it. I love the way it builds up with the vocal, and then the bass comes in and the drums. Brilliant. And then Never Forget, it's just a perfect closer. We will never forget tonight. It'll be all right. And it reminds one of the closer to the White Album. Now it's time to say good night, sleep tight. I just think it's a perfect end to the album, and it's a very underrated track, Never Forget. So, this was Fleetwood Mac Tusk. Absolute masterpiece, particularly in hindsight maybe, but even at the time I think the braver fans appreciated it. Maybe some people who were hankering after more Rumours type stuff were a bit disappointed. But these days it's lauded as the classic it undoubtedly is. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.